Good morning, everybody. So if you've been following along on my adventure in real estate, I just picked up this house right here. And there are a few things that if you can find in these old houses will give you a crazy amount of return on your investment. And in this one, I found it. So I want to talk about it in this video. All right, everybody. So this is my secret sauce and I want to talk about it. So those of you that watch my channel can know too. If you happen upon a certain type of house, and this type of house I'm very, very familiar with because I've bought them and I've flipped them, I've rehabbed them, and I've sold them as a real estate agent. And this type of house is fairly common to a certain side of my hometown, Pensacola. They were made back in the early 40s, late 40s, early 50s. Doing some real estate, Mom. What do you think, doo-doo? What do you think, Samantha?
So far, so good.
Where you going, Jack? Checking it out. Look for any problems. Look for any problems. And if you know what you're looking for when you see these houses, sometimes you can hit what we call real estate gold. Back in the old days, they really didn't have the ability to finish floors and keep them preserved. They had a real hard time with keeping the wood floors from getting scratched, or the stain wearing off of them, or the finish getting scuffed, and so they just started putting carpet over them. So Samantha did not know I bought this house. I basically came home and was like, hey, so I bought a house today. And she's like, you bought a house today? And I was like, well, you know, it just happened. I just bought it. I saw it and I just bought it. And she was like, well, is it in good shape? Like, is it like livable? And I was like, well, it passed my test. You know, some husbands buy guns. I buy houses. Sometimes by accident. You know, carpet is what it is. It holds smell. Cool, Jack. It's hard to keep clean, especially here on the Gulf Coast where sand literally just comes out of thin air. Like literally, I can walk across my floor and just sweep it, and sand will be back on the floor. And I know nobody's actually walked across it. Jack, you can't sit on the nails, man. Don't be a rookie. But that's what happens in carpet. That sand just keeps getting built up. It's where when you pull it back, there's just sand underneath the carpet, all the way to the carpet pad. So what I like to do is find these old houses, and if you are slick, you can go to like the back corner of a back room, because it's usually in the den, the bedrooms, and look at you, Jack. He's never done with carpet before. Very rarely in the kitchen. So you want to go in, you want to plan on, does it have it does it have the original floors in the living room and the bedrooms? And so what you can do is you go in the back corner of one of the bedrooms, you find the edge of the carpet, and you just peek underneath it and see if you can see the wood floors. And if they're underneath there, odds are you're going to be in the clear. Now, when I bought this house, I did a couple of things. I literally looked at this house for 30 seconds before I bought it. And as somebody that is a seasoned real estate person that's walked through hundreds of houses, here's what I did immediately. What I did was I walked in and I went to the hall right where the bathroom is. Because in the old 1940s, 1930s, 1950s, when a house starts to settle, it'll settle usually in a few places around the bathroom. And this floor plan, see, these old Navy houses had just a couple floor plans: left, a right, a brick, and a asbestos siding that is frame. And then the brick is 4 brick walls and really no stud structure. The roof just is bolted to the brick. So the floor joists where they run together right around the bathroom, there's a joist system that all sits on a pillar, and they'll start to settle in those areas. All right, got the carpet all out. So when you walk into these old houses, you look at the hall and see if there's a slope or a hump, okay? And if you know, this house had carpet on, so what I did is I immediately walked to the hall where it meets the bathroom and then the 3 bedrooms, and I ran my feet slowly across the hall floor. to see if there was a hump in it, because when the house starts to settle, you'll see the hump, and in wood floors, you'll see that the house is got a crooked floor. So like you want to make sure that there's not any slope or hump, and if there is, very little. I mean, all houses are going to have some sloping floors if they're old, and it's just part of it. Yeah, you can fix it. You just got to choose your battles on whether that 1/4 of an inch is worth it. But if it's a couple inches, yeah, you need to fix it. But for me, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, which means I got to jack the house up and move it around. We're not doing that. To make this simple, you want to have 0 to very little slope, because you just pick your battles. And then you'll know that the wood floors are probably in good shape, because when the house starts to settle like this, the floors, they're not going to be any good. And then you want to run into the bedrooms and just see if you can feel any like cupping underneath it or any soft spots. Usually what I'll do is kind of jump up and down like slightly and see if the floor settles or bounces or does anything weird. And then you'll know if you don't have any broken floor joists or anything like that. Because if you have a broken floor joist, odds are the wood floors are going to be a disaster underneath the carpet. And then I'll walk into the bathroom and see if there's any cracked tile or anything like that, because a cracked tile usually means that there is some type of wood rot underneath the floor or a soft spot in the floor due to water damage, most likely. I'll do that in the bathroom, and then I'll run into the kitchen. And in a lot of the World War II off-grade houses like I'm looking at, the kitchen was made with like a pine wide slat floor. And I'll literally look for any cracks in tile if it's been tiled, because you'll know that means there's a soft spot underneath, because tile will tend to crack when it's walked over, you know, over and over again, and there's a soft spot, there's a give, or the mortar or the grout will be cracked. So that's just cues to look for. Painting, little Jack, you doing a little painting? Yeah. Good job.
What? Good job.
Good job, man. Gonna be a painter. You're gonna be Michelangelo, little Jack. That's right. Be Michelangelo. And sometimes they were just built on top of that old slat floor, which starts to move after a while. So once I look at those things, and I can do that fairly fast, I know whether the floor underneath is going to be at least 1, even 2, if the wood floors are going to be a disaster. And if you see like any spots like a wall being removed or anything like that, you'll know that the wood floor underneath it in that area is going to be, it's going to need some fixing or it's broken. But in this house, it checked all those boxes, and I knew whether to execute on my plan. And then I knew that there was an old kitchen that was in the open living room that I would have to fix, probably with vinyl plank or a wood shiplap. So in this house, we opened up the carpet and we saw the wood floors were down there. The bedrooms looked great, but what had happened was when they plastered the walls, and when they renovated it, I guess probably the last time, the sheetrock the mud had settled on the floors, and there was some paint. I knew I was gonna have to refinish them anyways, so I figured I could get it off. It wound up being a little harder than I thought it was going to be, but it did come up with some good sandpaper, some 80 grit, some 60. Friday night painting operations.
Looks good.
Grit. We got it up. Probably went through $50 to $100 worth of sandpaper for the whole house. But you can rent these machines at Home Depot and at Lowe's through their rental exchange for about $70 a day, $75 a day. And all you got to do is just go over it, use some, good judgment to know if you need to go more aggressive or less aggressive. I would start with the less aggressive and work your way to aggressive, because these old floors tend to like almost be petrified. The wood is so hard, and it can be really hard to get the wood to actually sand because it's old and hard. I usually just started with 60 grit and worked my way to 80 grit, and I don't like to finish them to a complete smooth surface, because they're going to have imperfections in them, and that's part of the beauty. And if you do with a high gloss, you're going to see those imperfections. So I go with the satin, and I go with not a perfectly sanded floor, and it tends to work out pretty good. All right, so this is my secret sauce in real estate. These are my secrets, okay? These are trade secrets, and I figured, well, y'all need to know too. So there are a few things in real estate that you can call finding gold when you find them. And one of them is floors like this. When you can find them underneath carpet that nobody really knows was there and bring them back to life, you've hit it big. And it's about as big as you're gonna find it in these old houses. When I bought this house, I bought it from a wholesaler. I knew the area really well, and if you've been following me on this channel, you've seen me do this over and over and over again, especially with the old World War II Navy houses. Well, when they built these houses, they built them with this awesome wood floor. Really, you can't find the planks anymore to fix them, much less to do these floors. So that's what makes these houses and this special type of wood floor so valuable and so beautiful once you restore them. So I want to say, you're not going to get these old floors perfect, and that's part of the majestic, idea of them is they're 80 years old. They have their dings and dents, and you can do a lot of sanding on them if you want. But there's a point where if you sand too much on them, you could ruin them, they could split, they could wind up having to get ripped out of here, and it's better to have character on them than it is to have to rip them all out and have nothing. These were World War II era, pre and a little post floors. You can't really buy this type of wood anymore. Like this one's got a little character mark right there where somebody probably drugged something across the floor 60 years ago, but you know what? It's just gonna be part of the floor. And Samantha, she loves the character on old floors. My mother-in-law loves it. A lot of people really like the idea of it having its own story, its own majestic, thing of, I wonder what that scratch was for. I wonder why it was there, and which of the 5 families that lived in this house did that, and like over here, this is where the old kitchen used to be before that part of the house was built on. A lot of these World War II era houses were smaller, like people just didn't have big houses back then. So this was where the walls were for the kitchen, and so like we're just gonna do a shiplap floor over the top. We're gonna do, or most likely we're just gonna do a shiplap floor over the top, make it fun, make it interesting, make it match the character of everything else. We thought about vinyl plank, but you know what? It just won't match the idea of the cool little beach house vibe because we're really close to the water here. We're only like 6 houses from Gibbs Beach and from where we watch the Blue Angels fly all the time. And it's really cool to just check out. But this was the main part of this house. I knew they were underneath this carpet that was old and dingy. People had these reasons for covering them up back in the day, partly because they had no way to protect them. They would just get scuffed and dinged and dented, so they put carpet over it and just gave up with it. And then years later, poly and a lot of other type of things came out to where you could make them look beautiful again. And if you can find a house, they're usually in off-grade houses, World War II era, early 1900 era. What I focus on is the World War II, post-World War II, that have these type floors underneath. And most of the Navy housing had it. That's the way they built it back then. And when you want to talk about tough wood floors, these things are almost right at 80 years old, and they're still ticking. They've been abused and scuffed and dented and dinged. And you can go and get a little sander from Home Depot like I did and make them look pretty good. And you can be a pretty novice person as long as you keep the belt moving and you just have an idea of what you're doing and come back. And this is no stain. This is no stain at all. And we are looking at a really cool floor. This is just poly. We use a satin because you don't want to put glossy on old floors. You'll see every scuff in them. you want to go satin, and it makes it have this like cool hue to it. And it turns out really good. We're gonna probably put one more coat on it because it really soaked up a lot of the poly. Don't want to put too many coats. They'll do weird stuff if you put too many coats. You want as light as possible, just enough for it to be even across the floor, because you don't want any cupping or any crazy weird climate problems with what poly can do because it's got to shrink and expand. But if you can find these floors, you can take an old house from, a sub $100,000 house to something that people really want a piece of. And that's what we did here. I found a house that needed a little love. I knew these floors were underneath. They were covered in like a sheetrock plaster from when they did this, but I was able to get it off. And that was the hardest part, was getting that sheetrock mud off the floor and some old residual paint. It was all around the edges of the wall. And once I was able to get that up, we got some of the old paint up. It all came together. And if you can do that, you can do really well in the flip game. And that's really my game. Find these type houses where wood floors are underneath. Pull the old nasty carpet out because it's disgusting. Carpet is disgusting. I think that carpet had been there 15 years, and then I found these underneath. And I just have one little obstacle to take care of. This will all level out and look just fine, and it'll look really cool. So I hope this helps. What do you think, Jack? Mom's idea gonna work out?
What do you think?
You're gonna start out with you're gonna be one of those TV shows.
I'll be ship-lopping everything at our house now.
Oh no. So little Jack had a great time working in between us and around us. He played with all the different tools and pieces of flooring and was hiding underneath the table. Is this your favorite hiding spot, Jack? Under the table? And Samantha, she did a great job painting. She painted the whole house from its original yellow to this really cool color. I didn't get to pick it out. I'm not allowed to pick out any finishing stuff. I just break stuff and stick it together, and then she makes it look pretty. Put some new ceiling fans in the house. And all in all, this was a great renovation story. I did all the things you should do before going into a rehab project. I made sure that the house was safe, solid, and sound, that the electrical was good, the plumbing was good, the roof was new, and the AC was in great shape. And then I knew cosmetically we could come in and do these things. You got to really pick your battles with flipping houses, because they can be a rabbit hole, especially with the old houses when you got to deal with plumbing and all these things. But, it's going to take usually 30 days to turn a house around cosmetically. Took us a couple of days to paint the house, and then we still got to put the quarter around on the floors. And then we'll decide if we're going to sell it or if we're going to Airbnb it. I'm kind of thinking I might sell it. I'm not sure. But I hope this video helps you with a new idea of how to get instant equity in a property. When these wood floors are finished, they will take a house from $150,000 just generic old house to that $300,000 mark that somebody really wants. See, when you can get the old carpet out, you can get that smell out of the house, and smell in a house is money, okay? People smell it when they come in, they're like, oh, I don't want to pay that much for that house, it smells. Well, why don't you take the carpet out? And the carpet's actually in pretty good shape, it's just been in there a really long time. Once you get the carpet out, the smell will go away. You just, open the windows up a little bit. I put all new ceiling fans in. Just open the windows up a little bit and let it air out, and vacuum it out and mop the floor, and then you get these bad boys to come back to life. But I will say this, if you get a professional to do these floors, you're going to pay a lot for it. I mean, $12,000, $13,000, $14,000, $15,000. But for probably $500 in poly, $400 $400 to $500 in sandpaper and all that, and rental fees. For $1,000, you can bring them back to life pretty good. And if the next person's not happy with it, well, they can go and hire the expensive guy. But you can make them look pretty decent. But you got to remember, these are old houses. The floors, it gives it character when they got a little ding and dent to them. And yeah, you're probably going to find, you know, some little something wrong with them, but that is the beauty of these old houses. They have a story behind. We enjoy doing this kind of stuff as a family. Being able to put an old house back together as a family. Little Jack had a great time just messing with everything, and it's able to kind of bring us together as a family. My mother-in-law, myself, my wife, Little Jack, we all get in here and do our best to make it the best we can. We painted the house, did the floors, ripped the carpet out, and fixed a few little knickknacks, and it'll be ready for the market. Or, you know, if somebody's interested in buying it, I might let it go. If not, I might Airbnb it. I haven't figured it out yet. But this is how you add a lot of equity to a property. You know, I bought this house after contract and everything. It was like $168. You know, put, you know, these things into it. This thing's going to probably be worth $295-ish to $305, depending on valuing the new roof, the new AC unit, the driveway. All of it came with this property. But there's just a lot of value add by really just doing these floors. And that's why I call it real estate gold, because they're hidden. Nobody knows they're underneath there. But if you know what you're looking at, you know they're underneath there. I was able to go back in the MLS for 10, 15, 20 years, and I saw them in one of the pictures, and I knew they were there. And I knew some flipper just threw some carpet in here to get it sold, and I was going to grab it and rehab it, redo these floors, and bring them back to life. And that's where the value is really added in these real estate. Find something in these real estate transactions. If you can find something that's rare, like these floors, and in a community that people are really wanting, like Navy Point, by the beach, by the water, like right here, by where the Blue Angels practice, and everything that this neighborhood has to offer, this is real estate gold. As you can see, we've redone the floors as much as possible. This is going to be a white, like a shiplap floor. Still got some of it drying over here. Trying to shoot this video real quick because some of the poly's still drying, as you can see it, but we're ready for our second coat. That actually, me and Samantha have got to go find more poly. They're out in Pensacola right now with the poly we used, so we're trying to get a little extra, but wanted to shoot this video in between. If this house wouldn't have had the wood floors in it, the original ones, it would have just been an average house. But the fact that you could bring these things back to life, even though they're not perfect, just is icing on the cake on a little house on the beach. This house happens to be about 6 or 7 houses from Gibbs Beach, which is where the Blue Angels fly over when they come off their runway on Pensacola Naval Air Station. It's like maybe 10-15 minutes from downtown, and it's probably 15 minutes from both Pensacola Beach and Perdido Key, 20 minutes. So it's kind of like in a really good spot and a really beautiful spot, and that's the reason why I chose this one to purchase for investment purposes. I knew the area. I've been selling in Pensacola, like the west side Navy Point area, for years now, and I've bought houses and I've rented, you know, for investments in this area for a long time. So I knew this market very well, and that's kind of the key of all this is find one particular market, get really good at it, and then you're able to take an educated guess in buying these properties to flip, because flipping can be tough sometimes. You just got to know your numbers and stick with it. So I hope you like this video. Comment down below with your thoughts or any opinions you have that we can all learn from here about real estate, and I'll see you guys later.
Dad forgot the key. Jack's knocking. Say knock knock. Say let me in. Let me in.